Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. It won't start until 1 p.m. But since you're calling
Oh, I
from
thought
a
it said
telephone,
12:30 on
yeah,
the
we started
invitation said
30 minutes ahead.
12:30.
Right, we started so
Oh,
everyone can get online. Since you're calling from a phone, if you could change your Zoom name to your first and last name, are you able to do that?
I wouldn't know how to do that. But,
Okay. That's if you
I'm
can
trying to
tell me,
join the Zoom just with the join button,
okay.
and it won't let me do that.
Okay, I can change this, and you're calling from 303 and ends in 013, is that right?
303-564-7013.
Okay, perfect. And if you can just tell me your first and last name, I can change that just so it shows who you are on the screen.
Tim Jordan, Jordan.
And then are you with a company, or are you just appearing on your own?
I'm with a residential community in lower downtown Denver.
Okay, which one is that?
I'm
Are
sorry?
you appearing on behalf of them or just for yourself?
Yes.
Which? I'm sorry. Are you appearing on behalf of them?
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I apologize.
Are you appearing on behalf of the agency or just as yourself?
I'm on the board of the residential community. So I'm on the
Okay,
homeowners association board.
okay. And what is the name of that board? Just so I can put it on there
The,
on the
ti-
screen.
the titanium lofts.
Titanium Lofts, LOFTS.
Uh-huh.
And you said that was HOA?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So Tim Jordan with Titanium Lofts HOA, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna just change the screen so it shows that. Hold on. All right, thank you so much. And then if you can just mute until we start and then until you're called on to speak, if you're going to speak today.
Okay, I'll just hang on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Hi, is our reporter here and ready to go?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Harriet. Okay, with that, we are now on the record. This is a public comment hearing in proceeding number 23M-0464EG. In this proceeding, the Commission is implementing aspects of Senate Bill 23-291, including consideration of customer connections to and disconnections from investor-owned utility systems, and the study of potential barriers to beneficial electrification and distributed energy resources. The purpose Let me just, Stephanie, are you on?
Yes, it sounded like your audio was buffering and then we lost you for a second.
Okay, sorry. My entire Zoom restarted. So
Oh, no.
I want to make sure we didn't lose everyone. It seems like we just lost me. So no
Yes.
worries. I'll rewind just a little bit since I'm not 100% sure where I lost you. But this is a comment hearing in proceeding 23M-0464EG. And let me know, Stephanie, if I'm not coming through clear enough, I could turn my video off in the future. That's a problem.
Okay.
In this proceeding, the Commission is implementing aspects of Senate Bill 2390, including consideration of customer connections to and disconnections from investor-owned utility systems, and the study of potential barriers to beneficial electrification and distributed energy resources. The purpose of today's hearing is to collect information regarding current stakeholder experiences in securing new electric service, upgrading electric service to allow for beneficial electrification, sometimes referred to as BE, or implementing distributed energy resources, often known as DERs, particularly from utility customers, builders, and housing developers, local government officials, and utility representatives regarding electric utility policies and practices related to requests for new or upgraded electric service or interconnection of DERs, including the costs and timing of service upgrades for necessary system interconnection. Today is October 4th, 2023. I am Commissioner Megan Gillen, the hearing commissioner for this proceeding. I have been designated by a vote of 3 commissioners to hear this matter and issue a recommended decision for consideration to the full commission. I'm just going to talk about some brief logistics and then we'll open it up for comments. First, this hearing is being webcast on the internet. It will be live at all times during the hearing, including during any breaks we may take. So please be mindful of your video and microphone at all times. If it's not your turn to speak, please leave those off so we can focus on comments being provided until you're signaled to speak. A court reporter is listening remotely to this proceeding and live transcribing all oral comments for the record. Commenters should please state and spell their full name before giving their comments. Speak clearly and at a conversational pace. The court reporter may interject and ask you to slow down if she's unable to transcribe effectively at your speaking pace. I'll note from prior experience, this is particularly an issue if you're reading prepared remarks or maybe a bit nervous, can tend to speed people up. So please just be mindful of your speaking pace so we can ensure we get all of your comments down. Next, I plan to organize groups of commenters today for efficiency in the following order. First, I'd like to ask members of the general public to provide comments, perhaps members of the public who are just relaying individual thoughts or experiences, followed by builders and developers, then representatives from COSA or solar interests, then from other DER vendors, followed by utilities. I plan to announce a category and ask for those present from the described group or category to your virtual hand, and I will call on you in the order that you appear on my screen. If you're calling in by phone, you can unmute your phone, and that will also signal that you wish to speak. I may call on speakers out of order from time to time if we need to stay on a certain topic, but I'll certainly be trying to do my best to fairly get everyone in more or less the order that I see you. I don't expect that we'll be pressed for time today. We have this scheduled from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So I don't anticipate imposing any strict limits on comments in terms of timing. However, if the need arises, I may ask you to wind up your comments for the purpose of staying within allotted time and getting to a point of fairness with all of the participants. Next, if you have written comments prepared, there's no need to read them verbatim as oral comments. Instead, you can provide oral comments that are a summary of the key points of any written comment. Full written comments can be filed directly into this proceeding. Again, that proceeding number is 23M-0464EG through the Commission's e-filings website. Written comments can also be submitted through the Commission's main webpage, especially for those who are unfamiliar with e-filings. You can go to our main webpage at puc.colorado.gov and then click on the file, comment, or complaint link, and you can put it in there. It's very helpful if you identify the proceeding number that I provided. So we're still early in this proceeding. If you hear something today you'd like to comment on further, please take the opportunity to file post-hearing written comments. We aim to understand your experiences and priorities and want to aim to make it easy for you to contact us to best understand and consider your perspective. So perhaps you've already spoken, but here's something that triggers a thought, and you can certainly feel free to provide those written comments after the hearing. Finally, I ask that commenters today are mindful to avoid speaking on topics concerning other cases, and particularly to avoid repeating in this proceeding positions they're advocating for in ongoing litigated cases. This is important to ensure that the advocacy of these issues occurs within a litigated proceeding. Notice to other parties, opportunity to respond. If your comments today veer too close to a litigated case, I or counsel will likely interject and ask you to move on to another topic or another point. An example of this would be a commenter advocating in this hearing a specific position or change that they have already raised in public services ongoing interconnection proceeding 23AL-0188B, which is currently before an ALJ and will later come to the full commission. I understand not all commenters may be familiar with all of the different proceedings in front of the commission, so myself or counsel will give you a nudge if you veer into one of these issues, and we would encourage you to file comments in that appropriate proceeding on a topic too close. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to be here today and share your comments. It means a lot to us to get to hear from you all and your experiences, and really look forward to your time and appreciate your attendance. So now I'd like to move on to taking the comments. So the first category that I had mentioned before, I'll go through those categories just one more time for those of you listening, kind of hearing for the first time. First, I'd like to focus on any individual commenters from the general public, maybe relaying individual experiences or perspectives. Then I'd like to move to builders and developers, or those kind of within the building community, subcontractors, electricians, mechanical, whatever it might be. Then move on to representatives of COSA and solar representatives. After that, any other DER vendors, and then follow that by utilities. So Within those categories, I'll have folks just hit the raise hand button if you can. If you can't make that work, you could click on your video and wait until I get to your name. So with that, if we have any members of the general public here relay individual thoughts and experiences, I'd be happy to see if you all could raise your hand right now, or go ahead and turn on your video, and I will come to you in the order I see it. Okay. First on my list is Anita Seitz from CC4CA.
Hi there. My name's actually Anita Seitz, and I have a quick question. One of the groups that the PUC's email asked to participate today was local governments, and you didn't list that bucket. Would you like local governments to participate in this portion, or?
Yes, sorry for that oversight. I recognize on our list. Yeah, I think this is an appropriate time for local governments as well. Anita, I'm happy to you if you're okay starting, and maybe can see and spell your name for the record. I think I got it wrong.
That's fine. Hello, commissioners. My name is Anita Seitz. That's spelled ANITA SEITZ. I'm the Advocacy Director of Colorado Communities for Climate Action, CC4CA for short. And prior to that, I served on the Westminster City Council for 8 years. CC4CA is a coalition of 42 diverse local governments that have come together to work on strong and effective state climate action. This hearing and the issue of improving distribution planning and connecting new electric service is critically important if the state of Colorado is to meet our GHG reduction goals. As a side note, CC4CA did support and help work to pass Senate Bill 291, so we are very happy to have this hearing going on today. Distributed energy generation resources, beneficial electrification of buildings and of transportation are fundamental components of an effective greenhouse gas emission reduction strategy, and the status quo threatens to delay those efforts. Our members and other local governments have communicated their concerns to CC4CA on this topic, and I'd like to share a high-level overview of some of the things we're hearing, which fall generally into 3 buckets. The first are concerns with distributed energy generation resources, specifically solar interconnection issues. The second is individual homeowners having to pay for Xcel infrastructure upgrades when their project triggers a capacity issue for the utility. 3, new development. Oftentimes, the types of development we really need, like transit-oriented multifamily or affordable housing developments, finding out at a very late stage that the utility does not have the capacity to serve, and that they have both additional millions of dollars and years of delays. We find this particularly unacceptable as these developments help to address 2 of the state's most pressing challenges, the housing and climate crisis. As the PUC is no doubt aware, there have been issues with the cost of interconnection of new distributed solar resources to the Xcel energy grid, and these fall on the customers whose installation happens to exceed Xcel's hosting capacity for that area. Grand Junction, Rifle, and Boulder County are some of the Colorado communities that show up with the most limited hosting capacity on Xcel Energy's map, their hosting capacity map, and they are very affected by this issue. First, it's great that these maps are available at the local planning level. However, they provide very little benefit since the details are blurred. We do not believe that providing transparent hosting capacity all the way down to the neighborhood level compromises customer privacy or creates any kind of infrastructure risk. Therefore, we'd recommend the commission at a minimum require the maps to be fully detailed, publicly available, and accurately maintained. Second, It's unreasonable for a single customer to bear the full brunt of the interconnection costs. We've seen the cost causer pays principle for distributed generation hosting capacity present homeowners with price tags as high as $60,000. Not only is that inequitable to the customer who happened to be beaten to interconnection by their neighbors, it has a chilling effect on energy code adoption around the state. We do understand that solar is complex in terms of who benefits and who pays. What we advocate for is, one, to reassess the cost model so that upgrades that provide benefit beyond simply allowing the interconnection to occur are appropriately borne by the utility, not the individual customer. Two, that standardizing costs so that they are more transparent and predictable for customers. Three, developing a tariff mechanism by which costs can be distributed in a way that is more equitable. Third, the internet connection application could also be simplified by narrowing the scope of what the utility should be reviewing. For example, utilities are not in charge or have any jurisdiction over electrical codes. Reviewing electrical drawings and other elements that are already subject to review at the local jurisdiction are not within the utility's purview. What the utility should be reviewing is their own infrastructure and whether it can support interconnection of the system being proposed. Fourth, recognizing that jurisdictions are adopting progressive building codes and beneficial electrification and solar has a place among these codes, utilities must proactively address areas where there are hosting capacity concerns. And they need to do this before the problem surfaces, not after. Communities like the city of Louisville should be able to implement the national level codes that are adopted with a reasonable assurance of success, not be faced with decisions as to whether or not they need to roll back the codes because Excel's infrastructure in their community lacks the hosting capacity that other communities benefit from. Between state and local building and transportation electrification goals, we know that we can be certain there will be significant electric load growth. Local governments can't meet their adopted GHG reduction codes without very high levels of electrification. So it is important we work out these issues now in a way that recognizes the urgency and the pace of load growth and is equitable to ratepayers and how it contemplates cost recoveries for the utilities. Again, thank you for the hearing, for listening to our comments. We really appreciate your work on this issue, and we look forward to being involved in the future of this exploration.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. And I did get word that I think it's my audio is a little glitchy. So if when you're giving your comment, I tick off my video, don't worry, I'm still here. Just trying to make sure that I catch every word and can see you at the same time. So thank you very much for those comments. Next on the list, I have Claire Valentine from Denver. And just a reminder, anyone who's joining as a member of the general public or representing a governmental entity, go ahead and raise your hand if you would like to be placed in line to speak. Go ahead, Ms. Valentine.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilman. At the outset, would you prefer the abridged version or the unabridged version? The difference is 5 versus 10 minutes.
5 is closer, I think, to our target, given the number of attendees. And please do feel free to file written comments in the unabridged version.
That's great. And we will file our full written comments then in addition. Yes, so thank you. Good afternoon. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today on this topic. My name is Claire Valentine, which is spelled C-L-A-R-E, last name V-A-L-E-N-T-I-N-E. And I am a senior energy policy advisor with the City and County of Denver within the Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency. Today, I bring to you the perspective and experiences of the City and County of Denver, but my comments also come through the lens of experience with distribution system planning in Colorado and beyond. I've been involved with the distribution system planning process at this commission since its inception. I provided technical comments in the rulemaking initiated in 2020, and I testified in Public Services inaugural DSP in 2022. And what I can tell you through the lens of this experience and after the year that I've spent working with the city and county of Denver is that we've only scratched the surface of distribution system planning and preparing the grid for rapid beneficial electrification. There are significant challenges that the city, its community members, and local developers are facing to advancing not only transportation and building electrification, but also sustainable urban development more generally. At a time when Denver's new mayor, Mike Johnston, has declared an emergency around homelessness, the Denver metro area is short almost 70,000 homes. This is one of the widest housing gaps in the country, and we urgently require additional housing development, particularly affordable housing. Unfortunately, as you will continue to hear on this call, I'm sure, the city increasingly hears from builders that it works with that in the pursuit of electric service connections for new developments, public service has quoted them millions of dollars for grid upgrades and has stated that due to a lack of electric capacity, it will take years to add infrastructure to support these new buildings. I emphasize that this is not necessarily caused by electrification. The issues that Denver has encountered include mixed fuel as well as all electric buildings. Rather, at least within the city and county of Denver, we're already experiencing electric capacity constraints, and our office anticipates that these constraints will significantly hinder beneficial electrification in transportation and buildings, in addition to the development of affordable housing for our community members. I'm aware that several builders that Denver works with are here providing public comment today or through another channel. So accordingly, I will not share every example that the city has encountered of these issues, but rather highlight a select few with particularly problematic costs and timelines. And then I will provide through our written comment 5 recommendations for how the commission can continue to investigate these issues through additional questions that it poses to the utility through this miscellaneous proceeding. So to begin with some background, Denver's Office of Climate Action, Sustainability, and Resiliency has extensively engaged with the builder and developer community through its all-electric new buildings program. Denver offers design and equipment incentives for commercial development of all-electric new buildings and homes and is partnering with the buildings community on 4 commercial demonstration projects and 6 multifamily demonstration projects for all-electric new buildings. In particular, the demonstration projects have an equity focus. 76% of the pilot funds have been allocated for affordable housing or other projects serving under-resourced communities in Denver. Through this program, Denver has worked with a developer on a multifamily housing project that is designed to provide over 100 affordable housing units. The developer told us, however, that the project is on hold until 2027, 4 years from now, due to inadequate capacity in the area. Another example, the city has been in discussion with another developer on a multifamily building. This developer sought a conceptual capacity check for the development, and public service stated that the project would trigger the need for an additional feeder due to capacity constraints in the area. The company stated that the projected cost would be between $3 to $5 million and take 2 or 3 years. Similarly, the city has worked with another multifamily developer, affordable housing developer, aiming to construct 50 units. And public service, again, stated that the project would trigger the need for an additional feeder at a cost of $4 to $5 million. One final example, another multifamily affordable housing project, according to the developer, public service stated that they cannot provide a feeder extension to the site until 2026 unless the project pays to have it installed for $2.5 million. In all of these cases, the developer had no insight into whether their project will trigger the need for grid reinforcements until the 11th hour, when the developer submits its electric load calculations and construction documents to the company. Based on my conversations with builders and developers, it is not always even the sheer cost of the grid upgrades that is the problem. It's the timing and it's the uncertainty of the capacity. At this point, implementing the required distribution system upgrades delays the project, and it becomes challenging for developers to access financing to pay for the grid upgrades. Particularly, affordable housing has unique funding sources that are incompatible with these last-minute costs. Further, we have heard that developers are not told how much they're exceeding the available load capacity or if there are ways to mitigate the cost of grid reinforcements through load reduction below some threshold. To successfully support transportation and building electrification, as well as development more generally, there must be a better way. Denver sees the need for several changes to policies and processes, including modifications to assumptions in distribution system planning forecasting, better collaboration between utilities and community planning and development departments and local governments, new processes for developers to align their design process with infrastructure upgrades to ensure timely deployment, cost support mechanisms for service level upgrades, and potentially modifications to line extension policies. I'm pleased that the Commission has launched this proceeding to investigate these issues, and I expect that the Commission will continue to grapple with them in the coming months and years. This issue is very complex, and in the scope of this miscellaneous proceeding, we do have several suggestions for questions that the Commission could pose to utilities to be able to gather more information that's currently obscured to the City and County of Denver. When we raise some of these issues to public service, I think there's this perception that it's either hearsay or it's potentially exaggerated. And I think we need to see more data on what's really happening with these conceptual capacity checks and the costs associated with grid upgrades. So we'll provide additional details through written comment on some of the questions that we think would be valuable. But for now, this concludes my initial public comment on behalf of Denver. And thank you again, Commissioner Gilman, for taking the time to hear our concerns and suggestions.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll look forward to your written comments. I will point out too, we did issue a first round of questions to utilities to get some base level understanding of the policies and practices around some of this, just to mention that. But thank you so much for your comments. Next, I'll move to Edward Stafford.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Edward Stafford, EDWARD, STAFFORD. I'm with the City of Boulder as a Senior Manager in our Planning and Development Services Department. Pleased to be able to speak with you a little bit today, and I will start by saying echo many of the comments that Claire Valentine from the City and County of Denver just shared, and I'll share a few of our experiences that align with that and some of our challenges that we've seen as we try to support the development in our community here. One of the things we see frequently is the need for early coordination on both sides. We recognize this is not a one-sided issue, but is a challenge between both the development community and the energy providers. We've had multiple projects and have examples where assumptions are made early in projects because they're unable to have the coordinated effort with the electric utility, or they haven't been able to find a contact or process to do such, which results in projects having incorrect assumptions on the placement of cabinets, on grid capacity, on a variety of things that ultimately impacts design that may be multiple years in the process. The process is not clear for many. The ability to engage early in the planning process is at best limited, and developers therefore tend to take other sources outside of the electric utility to attempt to make these determinations. That results in those that are less knowledgeable about the specific issues, about the system itself, or are not necessarily reliable in the work to make determinations or recommendations that then cause projects to go in a direction that is ultimately not acceptable or feasible for the electric utility or the electric facilities. That creates a really strong need for early contacts and coordination efforts and a responsiveness to those questions and comments that it needs to occur long before an application for connection to the system occurs to support these developments that are working towards meeting our greenhouse gas emission goals and building electrification. We also see a challenge within the process of generic comments being issued that are not necessarily specific to the project, specific to needs. An example of these come out of plats where we'll receive very generic letters asking for exclusive easements that have a negative impact to the development and may not necessarily be appropriate or necessary for the distribution system. Further on in projects, we see frequent challenges with just obtaining things such as meter releases so that the connections can be made, be it for the brand new connection to the facility or for connection of the solar, and find out that there are minor administrative issues that have created holds on these meter releases and these meter connects, but the reasons are not necessarily clear. They haven't been shared or communicated. And in fact, frequently the blame is pointed back at the city that we didn't do something that we actually did. This creates delays to projects and frustration for our customers. It becomes a challenge for us as we become that point of contact and that blame because they don't have another point of contact they can actually get specific information or ask about this. Those are examples of some of the challenges that we see. Again, recognizing this is a joint effort that involves cooperative effort between the development community, the local regulatory communities, which is the City of Boulder, and the private utility that need to be worked on and improved so that the processes work, electrification can occur, and people are able to move forward and meet the goals of our communities. Thank you for your time. We appreciate the opportunity. And if there are follow-ups, we are certainly willing and able to provide future testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford. Appreciate it. And if you do have those comments written or have specific examples you'd like to provide us, feel free to submit in writing through our website or through e-filings. Just as a reminder, we are getting to any members of the general public to relate individual experiences or to governmental entities or representatives in this phase of the public hearing. So please do go ahead and raise your virtual hand if you're in that group and care to offer a comment. Next hand I see up is Don Koo.
Hi, Commissioner Gilman. Thanks for giving an opportunity to speak. I don't have any prepared comments, but I'm speaking as a resident of Lower Downtown. My name is Don Koo. First name is D-O-N, last name is spelled K-U. I'm a resident of Lower Downtown, and I wear a couple hats. I'm on the HOA board for Larimer Place, which is a 31-story high-rise condo building right next to Larimer Square. And I'm also on the board for the Lower Downtown Neighborhood Association. And we represent mostly the residents in the Lower Downtown area, which is composed of roughly 50 condo buildings and countless number of apartment buildings. And I wanted to just talk about kind of my experiences in both with Larimer Place and the neighborhood around working with Excel and trying in particular to meet a couple of other drivers that are hitting a lot of the residents in Lower Downtown. One is, you may have heard of the Energize Denver ordinance that was passed last year. So that's driving a lot of activity around trying to electrify, move off of natural gas, and also reduce our energy consumption across a lot of buildings to meet certain targets that the city has set for various buildings. The second driver is kind of the advent of electric vehicles, and the goal. I think there's a statewide goal to vastly increase the adoption of electric vehicles. Manufacturers have started to just manufacture those solely and have plans to do so. And so those two things in particular are driving the need for many buildings in Lower Downtown and in our place at Larimer Place, especially to try to add more electricity to our building. And what I've encountered for Larimer Place is that while we have some capacity now, Excel has told us that we will run out of capacity when we add about 20 more chargers. And we have 170 units at Larimer Place, and we're currently working with Excel to add 8 EV chargers. I mean, if the projections are from the state are accurate, and that we think we're going to get to half of the people adopting EV cars by the year 2030 or so, that's going to mean needing 80 or more spots, chargers in our building, and that's going to clearly exceed our current capacity. And I've tried to get with Excel to figure out, well, how much capacity, how can we add more capacity, and haven't been able to get a great answer from them. So that's my experience, particularly at Larimer Place. Secondarily, with respect to the neighborhood, I've heard anecdotally that there are a few other buildings that have also tried to bring electricity to their building and have been told by Excel that there's no capacity. And so they're full already. And in fact, one building, Franklin Lofts, had a plan in place to add a transformer into the alley behind their building. And then at the last minute, they were told that Excel wouldn't do that. I think maybe for right-of-way reasons or what have you, I'm not sure. So they're stuck as well. And I know Tim Jordan is on. He spoke earlier as he's on the HOA board for Titanium Lofts, and he's had trouble getting electricity to his building as well. And there's many other examples because everybody's trying to do this, right? Everybody's trying to add EV chargers. They're trying to move off of gas, and they're trying to do all sorts of things. And my overall concern is that we don't know kind of what the situation is with Xcel being able to provide capacity to all of these buildings in the lower downtown area. And without any kind of plans, we don't know how much it might cost us. We'd have to potentially try to pass assessments for our homeowners in our condo buildings to try to pay for this. We don't know what that might look like. We don't know if there are federal or state grants that might apply to offset some of the infrastructure costs. So we kind of feel like there's a lot of unknowns, and it's hard to plan for what we need to do and what we need to plan to pay for or fund over the next 10 years. So that's I want just to relay that, and I think that it feels like that there is at least some capacity issues in parts of downtown, and exactly where it's hard to say. And I'm not sure how we can get more transparency into what the situation is. Those are all the comments I have.
Thank you, Mr. Koo, very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your insights and expertise in the buildings you're working with there. Let's see, I had formerly seen another hand up in this group. I don't see one right now. So just offer anyone else from the general public or representing a local government or entity, feel free to raise your hand now, and I'll get to you in the order I see you. Now I see Allison Jones.
Hi there. Sorry, I'm trying to start my video. Yeah, I am glad that I joined this call. We are a multifamily developer. We're working on a project in Wheat Ridge right now. Our civil engineer is HKS Engineering, and they've joined the call as well. They do a lot of work with private multifamily developers here in the Denver area. We had an early capacity check or multiple early capacity checks from Xcel Energy that stated no issue with capacity for a project that we're working on in Wheat Ridge. If you guys are familiar with the American Motel that's on I-70, that's the project that we're working on. Just last week, this is, almost to the point at which we're 100% complete with our project design and electrical design for the project. We got word from Xcel that there's a capacity issue in the area, and that it's going to take 24 to 36 months for the design and for the routing the construction of the feeder to the project so that we can get power to the new building. This puts the project at risk, not just from a redevelopment perspective, but puts financing at risk that we were hoping to get from the Urban Renewal Authority in Wheat Ridge, which has to be spent by November of next year. So it's put a stop on that project, and we've had several conversations with Xcel Energy, and it's been pretty much the same result every time, that sorry, get in line, and nothing we can do to speed up the process, and we're sorry we didn't catch this issue 9 months ago before you spent $1 million on plans and entitlements, which is a huge issue, that we're spending that kind of money to get these projects entitled and then finding out so late in the process that there's a capacity issue. So I just wanted to voice my opinion on that, and I'm glad I joined this call. And I do think that our civil engineer HKS, they've got about 10 other projects in the metro area that are having this same issue, and it's really impacting our ability to get housing built. So I don't know what the solution is, but it's a big problem for us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Appreciate it. So I will move. I kind of have these broad categories. We'll move on to builders and developers next. So that was very helpful. So right now, focusing on any members of the general public or those representing any governmental entity or interest. After that, I plan to open it up to builders or developers, then solar interests and COSA, then any DER providers outside of just solar, and then to utilities after that, just to kind of organize us in some categories. So if I do have on any other members of the general public to relay individual experiences or governmental entities, I will take you next. And I see Mr. Jeff Filer.
Hi, yeah, apologies for dropping signal there earlier. This is Jeff Fiedler.
Sorry.
I'm a Lake County Commissioner. And I just wanted to say maybe in this time, the testimony and examples from CC4CA, from Denver, from Boulder, from other previous commenters all ring so true up here in our mountain community in Lake County. And just time and time again, this kind of incremental reactive approach to being able to serve, whether it's rooftop solar or putting in an EV charger, or trying to go all electric as a large municipal building, it just comes, that large incremental cost, if you're unlucky to exceed the grid capacity on the distribution grid, just puts a halt to trying to do the right thing and be aligned with the state's climate and clean energy goals. And I wanted to add one other thing, having been through this both as an individual, trying to build a new county building, previously on school board, there's a real lack of information. So all of these examples, someone knows to ask about going all electric or do beneficial electrification or put an EV charger. But if you don't even know to ask that question or consider it, the point of contact with Excel is not asking you to consider that option. It's just not being raised proactively to undertake beneficial electrification. And there's a huge missed opportunity for education and helping people think through those pros and cons. And I really encourage, along with that bigger issue of how to upgrade the distribution grid, is getting the utilities to proactively work with consumers to consider these options, because right now that is just not happening. And specifically, we're about to replace our largest single municipal building, our courthouse. And if I hadn't asked about an all-electric option and raised $50,000 of our own money to do the energy modeling, it wouldn't be on the table. And that's just, again, just a huge missed opportunity for these large municipal buildings and more broadly, consumers to try to pursue beneficial electrification. So thank you for taking the time.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Question, Megan, because I didn't, he said, how much money did he raise? I heard it 2,000 or 3,000 to do the electrification. I didn't get that number.
We got a DOLA grant for a total of $50,000, 50,000.
That was my question. Sorry, kind of got muffled. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you, Harry. We want to be sure we properly record any remarks we get. Thank you so much for adding that. Next, I see Jacqueline Colicchio.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gilman. This is Jackie Colicchio on behalf of Colorado Energy Office. I feel like we probably fit in this particular bucket of governmental entities. So thank you so much for letting me speak. I just wanted to ask if it is okay that we go out of order from your buckets, given that Mr. Hay wanted to speak today and he is at a conference in another time zone. And he will be joining a little bit later in this window of time that you all have scheduled for public comment.
Yeah, surely. Not a problem. Thanks for the heads up. This is just to kind of roughly organize us and keep us in certain topics and groups. But when Mr. Hayes available, he can pop on and raise his hand when he thinks it's appropriate as we're going.
Much appreciated, Commissioner Gilman. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Probably one last call for anyone joining from the general public to relate individual experiences or anyone representing a governmental entity or group. If not, if someone joins later, just send over with Miss Colegio would be fine for folks to raise their hands whenever they are available. Yeah, Mr. Jordan. I see you.
Yeah. Hi, sorry I didn't raise my hand electronically, but I wanted to echo what Don Koo earlier had voiced, just on behalf of the residential community here in Denver. We're being faced with conflicting demands. Energize Denver is telling us we need to reduce our energy usage, and much of that would require converting from natural gas to electricity. But on the flip side, we're being told by Xcel that we have no capacity. And Energize Denver has some huge fines if we don't meet their standards. But on the other hand, we can't do it because of that limitation. And we also really want to get on board the EV transition, but we also can't do that because there's zero capacity for that. And so we're really in a very awkward spot and just don't know where to go or who to help mediate the situation. So really, like I say, I'm really echoing what Don had said earlier, but it's a really critical issue down in lower downtown Denver. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Appreciate it. And thank you for joining on your phone. I know it's a little more difficult, but you came through loud and clear. Next, I see Mr. David Laddick.
Good choice. I'm just gonna echo Don and Tim's points about the downtown stuff. I think that the legislature needs to see this not just in Denver, but in other cities, as well as being a good way to push people out of living in cities if they want to do that. Because I think that these kinds of conflicting demands will continue to drive builders and developers, as well as those of us who are residents in these areas, to look for other opportunities if we can't find these needs being met and find a good way to have some sort of balance. So just want to, as a third person, just echo those comments again and make sure that they're heard multiple times.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Laddick. Anyone else representing individual experiences or governmental entities? Okay, next I'd like to move on to any builders, development, or kind of construction professionals outside of, I say, SAVE, solar, and DERs, which we will get to after this. So more general construction experience or practitioners. Go ahead and raise your hands. I'll get to you in the order I see you. First, I see Melina Saunders.
Yes, good afternoon. I'll get my camera going here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Melina Saunders, Melina Saunders. I am a senior project manager at AE Design here in Denver. We are an electrical technology and lighting design firm. So we work on electrical engineering projects locally and across the US. Recently, we've been working on multiple electrification projects within the Denver area, driven largely by the sustainability goals of our firm, our clients, and our state and local jurisdictions. Our process has always been to coordinate with the utility companies early in an effort to make sure the capability and the capacity is there, and also limit unexpected costs for our customers as early as possible. On coordination, the early timing has always been a challenge with Xcel, but has grown increasingly challenging given their expectation is that our design is complete, 100% CDs for construction documents before they even start their engineering. This is impractical given the large equipment elements that we have to coordinate around in design, both on site as well as capacity, as well as permit and calculation requirements that we as design engineers have to coordinate and evaluate before we even get to that construction document stage. Now with the electrification goals, there are greater implications for operating conditions that impact the utility side regarding a shift in the peak timing throughout the year and overall increased electrical load. So even if we're working on a renovation project as an example, the actual functionality of that electrical system, that profile changes. So on a typical project where we may not have even reached out to Xcel because we're still within the capacity of that transformer, now we're needing to do that because with the profile change, we are concerned about the capacity issues that have been expressed. So while we continue to push for earlier coordination with them and do try and have those conversations still in an early manner, a more concerning issue that recently arose with one of our larger clients, they have a multi-building system on a large medium voltage loop. They were hit with the infrastructure improvement charges as part of these early coordination discussions. That looked like we shared very, very early information for our, on behalf of our client. And after months of trying to get the right people in the room for this Excel conversation, we shared the plan for their first 3 buildings that they're looking to electrify coming online that are currently early in design. We're in schematic design and design development phases. Excel communicated at that point that the customer would have to pay over $1 million, a 6-figure number for improvement charges, because they were the client that pushed the forecasting over the allocated capacity on said infrastructure. It was resulting in the need to replace a feeder. So similar to another commenter earlier. When we asked about cost sharing opportunities, because they're not the only customer on that feeder, we were told that cost sharing was not an option. A 6-figure number well exceeds anything that our client had planned for these projects, and they are a large client. So while they may have better financial means to potentially find the funding for that, it's a large number, and they are very concerned about being able to get that funding in place in order to continue with our construction project. Excel also noted that this needed to be paid before the improvement can be made, and that process could hold up our timeline overall. And ultimately that there's no guarantee that once that improvement is made, capacity will remain for the second building planned in this project to come online, given that the construction schedule is a few years out. Excel did note that they offer a discount in anticipation of the other users, but only at a rate of about 35%. The 6-figure cost will land many other project types on hold and even put some at full stop. We in the industry sometimes call this a project killer. It's a challenge that many projects may not be able to overcome. The financial burdening is unclear. Project owners have no means to anticipate it. And the format feels as though larger clients are also unfairly carrying the weight of improvement shared by others when they are able to find a means to afford these costs. Overall, we'd like more transparency regarding cost distribution to customers. We would ask, how can Excel as an engineering partner help to provide more clarity, consistency in how these costs are applied? How do we help the owners to identify these costs before we as a design team may even be involved for both establishing a budget and raising funds? We feel strongly that the lack of clarity and large financial asks for these improvements will continue to be problematic until changes are made and the clients we represent for their sustainability plans for their projects. We need proactive action by Excel Energy to support the electrification goals and requirements of adopted codes and community sustainability initiatives that us as engineers and designers are required to design to, and our clients are expected to develop to. And as was mentioned, some of these expectations may come with fines if they're not meeting these. So that's my summary. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the time and consideration.
Ms. Saunders, thank you so much for your time and for your comments. Appreciate it. Next, I have Daryl Schreiner. I'm just trying to be equal opportunity and mess up everyone's name.
That's great. My name is Daryl Schreiner. I'm a director of construction for a big company. We do DERRELLSCHREINER, and we do a lot of affordable housing. We are in the process right now of a 250 unit project. And we've started it, and we have had issues with Excel Energy, especially on electrification, and especially getting the all the power to us, which is 3 or 4 miles away, and it is a 6- and 7-figure number that is really hard to work with. But I have found that once they give you the numbers and they work with you a little bit, some of those numbers do come down when you're on site, but we are dealing with those issues. They're incredibly hard to deal with. We're worried about making sure that we're going to get our closings on time, making sure that people can rent. And, in the affordable area, you have to start leasing way in advance and start working with people to get them involved and get them into your units. And this is something that is a little scary for us. We're pushing hard. We have decided to have weekly meetings with the Excel people that we're working with, and they have been good to meet with us and help us understand some things. And we help them understand some things that we need done to get people moved in. So I agree with everything that everybody has said. Everyone has brought up some great things that need to happen. I think the biggest thing is communication. And sometimes people are afraid to talk to each other or visit with them, and everyone wants to do it on Zoom and doesn't want to do it face to face. You can tell I'm an old guy. I like meeting face to face. I like talking to people. And I think if we can help Excel and everybody understand that, which we're working to do, and get people to get started on communicating on why we're having these problems, what we need to do to solve it, because I think everybody is talking about the problem. I think what we need to do is figure out, how do we solve these issues? How do we sit down together and make these things work? Because we have to compel those events to happen. We can't just watch them happen. And so those are the things that we're dealing with. Like I say, we're right in the middle of a 250 unit apartment project, all affordable. That's what we mostly build. And it's a struggle and it's a little nerve-wracking, but thank you, Megan, for having this meeting and listening to all the things. I won't say everything's going to say almost the same thing about what we're saying, but I just want to thank you guys for letting us come in and talk and be a part of this, because it is a big problem and we need to all reach out and figure out how to solve it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your comments. And next I have Kyle Sundman.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Gilman. Thank you for hosting this meeting. My name is spelled Kylesundman. I representing Pivot Energy. We're a national community solar developer with a strong focus, and actually headquartered here in Colorado as the senior director for project development. Obviously, we've heard a number of challenges that various stakeholders have experienced, and we have a number of our own to share as well. We will submit written comments in addition, so I'll keep my comments brief and broad and focused on a few key points, which would be data quality, transparency, and cost sharing. So, just as a broad point, I'd like to start by saying that we do think that public service company can and should conduct sort of internal reviews to improve processes and adequately resource their teams. And we also recognize that they may not be empowered to make all of those changes without some support from the commission. So certainly we'll hope that they do receive that support through this proceeding. And in many cases, just to acknowledge, we have found Excel to be a willing and collaborative partner, especially on the individual contributor level. With that said, we do continue to experience systematic data quality issues throughout the entire interconnection process. And by the way, I'm speaking mostly on the community solar side of solar development here. But this can present as inaccurate system impact study results, with the quantum of error between system impact and facility study being literally millions of dollars, all the way down to sort of simple but meaningful clerical errors on the delivery of final executable documents, where inaccuracies are found throughout the interconnection agreements, which we believe just sort of demonstrates a lack of QA/QC at the program level. On the issue of transparency, when some of these aforementioned issues in the system impact studies present, we're looking to further understand the calculus, the inputs, and the rationale. We often receive few and vague answers, and have also been told very directly that we don't need that information and Excel will not be providing it, which is unfortunate and lacks sort of good faith and collaboration in our minds. Most markets, there is transparency in the study results process through the interconnection, and a far more detailed interconnection agreement is provided with a facility study, whereas in Colorado, the interconnection agreement itself as a single line of the overall cost estimate for the upgrades, with no further information about how that number was reached, what was considered, how procurement works, et cetera. Lastly, as renewable energy generation continues to increase in a penetration sense, we'd like the commission to consider directing the company to investigate cost sharing strategies that support general grid infrastructure upgrades, may also align with planned improvements in various areas in the state. We as developers are more than willing to pay our fair share to upgrade the utility grid on behalf of our projects, but much like you've heard with some of the residential issues where whoever's unlucky enough to get hit with the major upgrade will need to pay it for everybody else. We think on the kind of community solar level that creates inequities and unnecessary roadblocks to development. There's a great opportunity here for the company to bear a portion of the upgrades, where the created but unused capacity can be then used by another developer and the company can be reimbursed. Perhaps there's a nominal carry fee for doing so, but a way that allows projects to move forward without always being in long cluster studies that require collaboration not only with everybody in queue, but also the utility itself. So like I said, we'll follow up with some additional written comments as well, but want to thank you for your time. And I guess a quick question for you is there a deadline for when you want those written comments to be submitted?
No, I do think, the sooner the better. With the nation, we're kind of first conducting the study portion as a response to 291, looking at barriers to PE and DR deployment. And then there will be some other phases of this proceeding that outlive that study. So I think as soon as you are able you able to hear me?
It's a little choppy, but the takeaway was as soon as possible. So understood.
I turned my video off. Sure. So the sooner you get comments in, obviously, the more of this proceeding and the more of the study we'll be able to take into consideration what you've provided, versus the alternative if it comes in later. So we don't have a hard deadline, but the sooner the more we'll be able to consider it.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
And apologies again for my internet. Of course, as luck would have it, it's on its worst behavior today. So just a reminder, you can hear from builders, developers, other building professionals. I'll plan to have COSA and some solar focused interests go after that, and then other DER providers, and then utilities. Just keep us organized a bit if folks are able. So next I see on my list, Ms. Melissa Stu, and I'll see how it's going. Hopefully I turn my camera back on if it seems like the internet can handle it.
Hello, I'm Melissa Stube, Melissa, last name Stube, with Urban Ventures Development Services. I echo what everybody else has said. Thanks so much for inviting us here to talk through our recent experiences in getting electrical service for a new housing development. In the context of the development that I'm talking about, we're dealing with challenges of bearing the financial responsibility of existing grid limitations, as well as challenges around the lack of availability of accurate and timely information about the available existing service. So the project that I'm talking about is 89 units serving single parent families exiting homelessness. It's in the heart of Denver. It's on Alameda. It's about 1/3 of a mile from the South Platte River. So we're right smack in the middle of town. It is a low-income housing tax credit project. So major source of the funding is the federal tax credit program. So there's really strict timing milestones associated with that funding source, as well as the support that we're receiving from the city and the state to provide this housing. And this project does align with the city's homelessness state of emergency, since those are the families that we're going to be serving at this property. So just a quick little outline of what we've experienced with this project. In March of 2022, we submitted our city concept, and that went to Excel as well, and no comments were returned.
Fast forward, we submitted our LIHTC application, and right after that, we sent a message out to Excel to request the level of existing gas and electric service. Having heard some murmurs of stories of projects not having appropriate and adequate service levels, wanted to reach out very early on, and that was September of 2022. Didn't really hear anything substantial back from them until December. And we found out in December that we would need reinforcement for the electricity portion, but they weren't able to provide a ballpark estimate. And we also didn't understand that the project would be on the hook for the cost of that. So we continued to reach out and trying to get more details and a project budget. And then in May, so this is over a year after our concept submittal was sent to Excel from the city, we were able to get some time on the phone to chat with some folks, have a casual conversation about the project. And that was only the first time that we really understood the scope of the reinforcement, that the existing power at the site was enough to maybe power 2 small single family homes. And, we are headed towards the finish line to break ground on 89 units. So we found out we would need a feeder run from about 1.5 miles away. And through this process, the designer that was assigned to our project has been very pleasant and very responsive. And so we've been really grateful to have him on our team. We did not have a final budget for it or design. And we had to push through our LIHTC closing so that we could break ground and get some housing built for homeless families. So beginning of August this year, we closed and we received our design and costs for the offsite reinforcement at the end of August. So it came in at a little under $400,000. It's less than what we heard through the grapevine that it would be, but it's still way beyond what this project has a budget for. So, and I think that one of the key points is, as developers, we're used to paying for transformers and on-site distribution. So Urban Ventures has been around for 25 years and we've never had to pay to bring power to the site within the city. So it's especially troubling when it's an affordable housing development. So we all can understand that it's really apparent that Excel is running out of capacity to deliver electricity within the city. And it's very frustrating that the last development to go over the grid capacity in an area seems to be the one that is on the hook to bear the brunt of the cost of the infrastructure improvement. Seems to be a pretty flawed policy that does not provide equality, and particularly when we're all working collaboratively to meet all electric goals, and the roll of the dice just happens to land on an affordable housing development that already has a tight budget to provide social benefits to our community. So really grateful that you've invited us here to share our experiences and hopefully work towards a solution.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I apologize for having my video off, but I'm on the edge of good enough internet, so I don't want to blow it. Next, I have on my list Augustina Remedios.
Hello. Thank you, and hopefully the background noise isn't too much. My name is Augustina Remedios. I am with the Neighborhood Development Collaborative. We're a coalition of 22 affordable housing providers working across the Front Range, primarily in the Denver metro area, with some of our members in serving across Colorado. My comments today are regarding the ability of Xcel Energy to support the housing need in Colorado. It's no exaggeration to say that the current Xcel policy represents one of the most acute barriers standing in the way of creating critically needed affordable housing. We are specifically focused on the importance of transparency in service capacity and substation siting, as well as the overall cost to affordable housing developers. Electricity provision is a crucial component to our community's infrastructure, and understanding cost implications and operational details is essential to us as affordable housing developers. To improve the situation, we have 3 specific asks. With regards to impact on affordable housing, Since 2019, the cost for substation capacity has been split between developers and Xcel in a 65-35 division. This flat rate, applicable to all developers needing capacity upgrades, serves as a regressive cost that affordable housing developers must bear. The margins for building affordable housing are much slimmer than those in market rate housing. Thus, the cost of major infrastructure upgrades can easily exceed the funding available through the revenue and subsidies. Millions in unforeseen costs and years of delays are not just an inconvenience, they stop affordable housing development in its tracks. And actually with that, I wanted to echo some of what other folks had said and what Claire had mentioned earlier. Some of those examples are almost exactly to a T of what some of our members have been facing. So with this, we ask that other members, we ask that other means of offsetting these costs to be explored for communities serving development, especially affordable housing development. This could be in the form of a cost split that puts less burden on the developer, waivers for infrastructure investments, or private public partnerships that can offer subsidies for affordable housing development. With regards to collaboration for transparent service capacity, in recent years, our members have received will serve letters, which have previously been understood to mean that the provider has adequate capacity to serve the new development. More recent letters have been clarified to mean we are willing to serve you if you bear the cost of new infrastructure needed to generate electricity for the site. This results in a very late in the game, unplanned expenditure that is impossible to budget for during the development planning. Early access to accurate information about the capacity of existing substations is critical for our plan. With this, we ask Xcel should clarify capacity earlier in the review process, being able to provide a likelihood that service will be available during the concept review phase of building permit process with aid affordable housing developers in assessing the financial viability of their plans before sinking millions of dollars into pre-development expenses. And then lastly, citing transparency, it is critical to implement transparent and community engaged processes for substation siting. Ensure that communities, especially low to moderate income communities who have historically borne the brunt of infrastructure externalities, have a voice in the decision-making process. A lack of transparency in substation siting can only benefit the service provider or the market rate developer with resources to push new substations offsite. Allowing the community, we have to ask more of a voice in these decisions is absolutely crucial. We ask for the development of a public process to coordinate input from community, developers, and affected jurisdictions to determine equitable siting selection for new substations. Ensure that this process is not just informing the public of decisions already made, but that it allows for meaningful feedback, creative solutions, and the elimination of externalizing impacts on the lowest income residents. In conclusion, the cost and transparency of substations and line extension infrastructure management plays a significant role in our ability to provide affordable housing options for our community. The less equitable this system is, the less empowered we are to meet critical affordable housing in other communities. We urge all stakeholders to work collaboratively to find innovative and cost-effective solutions that allow us to continue our mission in offering affordable and safe housing to those who most need it. And there was one more thing that I wanted to add to the impact on affordable housing in the 65-35 division split that was enforced in 2019 is that prior to that, we've learned that the cost of the substation was borne, the person who first initiated the cost of a new substation would bear the brunt of that cost, and then other developments to follow who would benefit from that substation would then pay back the original person. I think something along those lines would also be beneficial, or bringing back some system in that way, in addition to the comments that I gave for that before. Thank you so much for your time and perspective on this, and we really appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Medio. Appreciate your comments. Next I have Ms. Herman. Ms. Herman, before I go to you, just a reminder, any builders, developers, those kind of outside of specifically solar and DERs who wish to comment, please go ahead and raise your hand, and I will get to you as soon as we're done with Ms. Herman. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Gilman, and thank you for this hearing. I'm Sarah Harmon, Senior Vice President at Urban Land Conservancy. My name is spelled S-A-R-A-H-H-A-R-M-A-N. Urban Land Conservancy is a 20-year-old nonprofit real estate company working across Metro Denver. We ensure affordable housing, affordable nonprofit space, and other amenities are built and preserved in historically underinvested and gentrifying communities. We don't work on market rate development. We are focused entirely on meeting the needs of underserved communities in the housing and real estate crises our neighbors and neighborhoods are facing. We also put high priority on environmental sustainability, on electrification, solar, and we've invested also in geothermal. For 20 years, we've worked effectively with Xcel Energy as our local power utility. We have trusted Xcel for our power, just as they've relied on us as consumers. I would like to share with you a specific development experience we are in the midst of right now. And before I get into that, I would like to say that Xcel has some exceptionally talented people on the ground in middle management and design, engineering, and in leadership. So ULC would like to see that Colorado talent and Colorado workforce is preserved, grown, and strengthened. We are concerned that we must ease the impossible situations and inherent conflicts that many of these Xcel staff today seem to be working on. So to a specific development, ULC is currently in pre-development for the Irving at Mile High Vista. This is 102 affordable apartment homes being developed on West Colfax. Affordable housing finance is complex and highly competitive. Last year, on the basis of no objections being raised in our proposed developments concept review, for which Xcel is a reviewer, we then competed for and successfully won a coveted low-income housing tax credit award with matching state credits. This was both an honor to the development and enabled a financing tool necessary to build this housing. That was last year. This summer, our development team was given notice through one sentence in an otherwise normal email that no power would be available to our site, to our apartment building, until 2027. This unexplained statement stood to derail 10 years of ULC's investment at the site in land acquisition, in brownfields remediation, entitlements, community engagement, phase development, and our current building design and site planning, not to mention disrupt our financing. We had been positioned to house 102 families and individuals with income spanning 20% area median income to 80% area median income. These are the very people who keep our city, our schools, our hospitals, and our utilities operating. So we quickly mobilized response to work through every channel we could find. This was a crisis. It felt desperate, and our development has hung in the balance. We needed to understand the facts of the situation, which are have not been that easy to determine at the start. We sought to turn over every stone to bring new and creative resources to the problem and to identify any possible solutions. We know that making housing people can afford in Denver is a high priority. It's civic, it's humane, and it's necessary. We are on a mission to do this. It has not yet been confirmed by Xcel Engineering, but it is possible that a combination of political advocacy and creative thinking, including by their systems staff, may give us a sliver of a chance to get this development built, this 102 affordable apartments. To say that we are on a couple-week countdown in survival of this development is not an exaggeration. It's painfully accurate as we're trying to balance the pressures of housing development with our financing awards. Where market rate developers may be able to adjust their budgets and pass on sudden unexpected costs, including the costs of delay, because a delay is very expensive. Affordable housing cannot do that. As I think you've just heard, we're restricted in the uptick of our rents. Our operational budgets are constrained, and we have hard deadlines to meet for our federal financing. So if we can, by Xcel's graces, creativity, and everyone coming together, just squeak through to build the Irving at Mile High, then we have to ask what's next. Urban Land Conservancy owns other property in the metro area that we have expected to develop as affordable housing. Yet we've been told that pockets of utility under-resourced areas exist all across the metro. And two, we're told that those exact areas and the capacity limitations can't be shared with us. So how in the world do people plan ahead? We cannot afford again to front $2 million in pre-development costs just to get into the conversation, because it's at the point of detailed load and sub-panel drawings where Excel wants to start the conversation about capacity facts. Somehow, the power utility needs to become able to discuss at least rough orders of magnitude earlier in the process, to discuss these geographic-based capacity limitations with transparency that is timely to the on-the-ground facts of multifamily housing development. I'd like to summarize 3 reasons why affordable housing in particular is especially vulnerable to the recent capacity connection, and especially the 65% upgrade cost burden. 1, affordable housing does not have the ability to make up unexpected costs by increasing cost of rent or the list price. 2, affordable housing finance is much more complex and slower moving than market rate development finance, so that when there is a first mover advantage in getting power capacity allocated, affordable housing will lose. We're not fast. Where there is a first mover cost burden, affordable housing will lose because we may not be able to make up those costs through margin. And 3, housing of any kind is now competing with all other development types for utility capacity. Multifamily housing development will typically move more slowly than transportation infrastructure. Urban Land Conservancy appreciates any prioritization and affordable housing prioritization as much as can be possible by the Denver Mayor's Office, by Excel Colorado. It is our hope and our understanding that the Irving's needs for temporary construction power and permanent power might yet be met. So we are just one of a number, as you're hearing today, of developments hanging in the balance of immediate decision making. It's important that we speak not just for these immediate points of decision, but also for the affordable housing pipeline that will start tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. We know people need housing. We look forward to utility capacity, appropriate power resources, and trusted, timely communications to house all of our community's peoples today and into the future. So ULC, we want to be optimistic. We want to be an ally to the PUC, an ally to Excel. Where policy needs to change, we'd love to participate. Where trust needs to be rebuilt, transparency needs to be added, or relationships need to be reinforced, we do look forward to joining you in the hard conversations that will follow this hearing to bring solutions for affordable, attainable, and available housing. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ms. Harmon. I appreciate it. I don't see any other current hands up in our developer or builder area or category. If there's anyone else working in the construction field apart from solar DERs, please go ahead and raise your hand. I'll get you now. Otherwise, not seeing anyone, we'll move on to solar interests. So COSA or other solar developers or interests or experiences, be happy to get to you each now. And again, I apologize that I don't think my internet is still quite good enough to have my video on, but I'm hearing you loud and clear and listening intently. So first up, I have Ms. Cooks.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilman. Appreciate it, and just want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. Thank you. So good afternoon, Commissioner Gilman, advisors, fellow participants. My name is Ellen Howard Kutzer, ELLENHOWARD KUTZER. I'm General Counsel for the Colorado Solar and Storage Association, or COSA. So as you know, COSA is a trade organization that represents the businesses that work to deploy distributed energy resources, or DERs, to the grid. This includes the companies that build residential and commercial on-site solar and storage, and the companies that develop community solar gardens, many of which are now providing income qualified customers with significant bill savings. So many of the other commenters that you've already heard from have covered some of the same points that I plan to, so I'll try to be succinct. We appreciate the Commission's investigation into the barriers for both beneficial electrification and DERs in Colorado. I want to stress that we're observing that, the utility's reactive approach to distribution system capacity planning is appearing to be a very huge problem, both for DER deployment as well as other development. And I observe that this is an ongoing barrier. Distribution system capacity constraints are the significant barrier to DER deployment as well. When the system lacks sufficient capacity, a customer cannot interconnect a DER without paying up to upgrade the system and increase that capacity. Our understanding is that customer responsibility for system upgrade costs are captured in internal policies that right now have little or no PUC oversight. And as utilities have applied the traditional cost causation principles, including the Bond-Bright cost causer pays principle, the customer who triggers a system upgrade related to a DER is responsible to pay the full cost of it. As applied, as you're hearing today, it's just the few unlucky customers who are triggering these system upgrades who are paying the bulk of the costs for these system improvements. So just as an example, a customer who wants to adopt residential on-site solar might be hit with a $7,000 transformer upgrade charge if there's no more capacity in their neighborhood for new solar. Most of these customers will end up deciding to cancel their plans to put on solar storage if an upgrade is required. But for example, if the customer does agree to pay the system upgrade costs, their investment opens the door for others to adopt solar in the future without any promise of recouping the costs of their investment in the system. In other words, the neighbor who pays for the transformer upgrade opens the door for the neighbors down the line to get solar with zero system upgrade costs of their own. This is creating an inequitable situation where some customers in a small area foot the bill for other customers. Not all customers or cost causers are paying equally. So application of these principles gets even more complicated when a customer is looking to adopt both DERs and electrification measures. COSA is hearing stories of inconsistent determinations of customer cost responsibility for system upgrades when you're looking at DERs compared to these electrification measures. And presumably this is because the measures that sell more electricity, like electric vehicle adoption, are not looked at equally to DERs, which decrease electricity sales. So as an example, a customer installing on-site solar is typically responsible for 100% of a system upgrade costs, but a customer installing a level 2 charging system pays 0% of a system upgrade costs. When DERs are paired with electric vehicle charging, the customer cost responsibility is inconsistent. Sometimes these customers pay nothing, sometimes they're asked to pay 50%, and sometimes they're asked to pay 100% of the system upgrade costs. Again, this inconsistency shows that not all cost causers are paying equally under the current system. This problem isn't limited to on-site solar. Community solar gardens are also facing significant interconnection challenges, as you heard from the representative from Pivot Energy. This is starting to cause many projects that have been successful in obtaining an offtake agreement, in the renewable energy standard process to cancel those projects for CSGs that may be serving low-income customers. We're hearing stories of planned interconnection costs now exceeding $2 million or more. Sometimes these estimates are not coming in consistently. I think Pivot touched on this, but they may get an initial estimate in a feasibility study of little or no interconnection upgrade costs, and then later down the road, those costs end up being very significant. Recently, in a third quarter report, Xcel Energy read out to renewable energy standard participants that we are seeing 135 megawatts of a pool of 416 megawatts of approved CSGs actually coming online. We're expecting to only see an additional 16 to 18 megawatts that will be added this year, or 10% of the awarded capacity. We're really concerned about this because as we're seeing community solar gardens now serving more and more income qualified customers, having just over a quarter of the allotted capacity coming onto the system means like we're not getting the bill credit savings that we're expecting. That's frustrating the goals that the commission has and really the purpose of the RES plan as a whole. So I think I'll defer to Ms. Wiskowski to talk about some of the problems that members are encountering with the construction of new homes that have on-site solar. But I just note that this is also a significant issue and one where we're not seeing sufficient capacity reserved for new home development, new neighborhood development with on-site solar. So just to conclude, the lack of transparent policy and inconsistency raises significant equity concerns. As increasing levels of DERs and beneficial electrification are deployed, random system upgrade costs are becoming a significant barrier to Colorado's ability to meet our electrification and decarbonization goals. We observe that a larger question exists. Should the traditional cost causation principles continue to apply when we have state level policy goals that require the deployment of technologies such as DERs and beneficial electrification? COSA believes that customer responsibility for these costs should be viewed within the context of our larger decarbonization goals, and socializing a majority of all or at least some of these costs among ratepayers as a whole would allow customers to continue to deploy the technologies we need to meet our decarbonization goals. COSA hopes the Commission will consider this as they investigate a pathway forward. Thank you very much for your time and consideration of our comments.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comments. Next we'll go to Catherine Witkowski. Just a reminder, if anyone else is on representing any solar interests, solar companies, feel free to raise your hand and we'll get to you after Ms. Witkowski.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gilman. I'm Catherine Wiskowski, here representing Sonova Energy. Sonova Energy International is a leading residential solar and energy storage service provider with over 300,000 customers across the U.S. and its territories, including Colorado. Sonova works with community developers that build new construction projects with solar-ready homes. Beneficial electrification has been hindered by overloaded circuits and how they're communicated, new development studies, and timeline durations for interconnection. So in Public Service Company of Colorado Territory, the distribution system was not planned to include solar and storage, and the increase in load has caused delays for new developments. Overloaded circuits have been the main issue for new communities seeking interconnection. PSCO has been able to solve this by moving loads from one circuit to another sometimes, but this solution still creates delays in projects. PSCO currently studies each home individually, and it doesn't plan for the impact the entire community could have on a circuit. To avoid this barrier, we suggest utilities study entire new communities so they can plan for solar and storage on the front end of new home development. Fort Collins Utility already has a process to review neighborhood developments in their entirety to understand the change in load and how to make it more balanced. This practice also allows developers to know what the cost of upgrades for transformers and ducts will be up front. It also allows individual homes to skip the study process so the developer can receive a quicker analysis. Another barrier to beneficial electrification is communication of circuit locations. PSCO will inform the developer that a circuit is overloaded and provide them the circuit name, but the name doesn't identify where the circuit is located, and the current hosting capacity maps don't allow searches by circuit names. This is an issue that can easily be solved and will save a lot of time for developers. California utilities like Southern California Edison have a map that allow users to easily find circuit location, and it would be very beneficial for the PSCO hosting capacity maps to include a similar feature. Developers obviously prefer to build solar ready communities in areas that are not overloaded, but it's difficult to find those areas right now with the current hosting capacity map. The last issue is more of a procedural issue between the utility and permitting offices. There have been times that interconnection takes so long to complete that a project's permit becomes past due. Permitting departments are asking developers to resubmit permit applications and redo inspections for homes that have already received permits. This, again, is an issue that can be solved by studying new developments in their entirety in the early stages of development. They'll just allow the interconnection timelines for individual homes to be reduced and avoid needing a new permit. Sonova really appreciates Commissioner Gilman's time and this opportunity to address barriers to electrification.
Thank you, Ms. Wachowski. Appreciate it. Anyone else representing solar interests? I'll also open it up to any other DER vendors or contractors so that we can understand the experiences particular to that area, if any folks are on right now. Okay, not seeing anyone. I see Mr. Hay on. I know you weren't available before. Mr. Hay, did you want to offer a comment now, or maybe you're not quite available?
Good afternoon, Commissioner Gilman. This is Keith Hay. I'm the Senior Director of Policy at the Energy Office. I apologize for not being able to join you at the start of today's meeting, but appreciate the opportunity to speak now. I am going to have to leave my camera off. I am at a conference and the conference Wi-Fi is not particularly good. So my hope is that with the camera off, you all can hear me okay. Is this coming through?
You're coming through. Great.
Great. And Commissioner Gilman, again, appreciate the work that you were doing and the work of the commission to look at the impacts and the implications of the distribution system and distribution system planning for beneficial electrification. And I understand from talking to my counsel that there is a lot of ground that has been trod. So I think what I'd like to do is perhaps keep my remarks brief and make some observations about what I've heard in the last sort of 45 minutes or an hour that I've been on. You know, I think starting at a particularly high level, I think part of the issue here is one that the Energy Office raised going back to the Commission's rulemaking on distribution system planning. And that is that historically, the utilities have planned their distribution systems in a particular way, and that is to ensure, reliable electrical service, safe electrical service, but not necessarily in a way that would take account of what I would suggest is a very different environment today, and that is that customers are changing the way they are acting and interacting with the distribution grid. And that the utilities are being pushed to really have to plan the distribution grid to help achieve a range of policy goals. I think that COSA did an excellent job summarizing a lot of those. And that because we are now asking the utilities to serve their customers in a different way and to achieve these policy outcomes, we really need to plan in a very different way than we have in the past. And I think that a big part of that from listening to the developers today is to make sure that a range of distributed energy resource developers have access to information that can help them understand where it may be beneficial early on to plan and where their investments in, whether it's home building or if it is, low-income multifamily units, or it is fleets electrifying in the transportation sector, where there'll be more significant grid upgrades that would be required. But without having access to that information and having access to that information early in their development processes, it really does two things. As you've heard from the developers today, it frustrates their work and adds costs. And I think that Ellen was right when she said, it also frustrates the state achieving its policy goals. And so I think what, from the Energy Office perspective, we would encourage the commission to look at what it can do to help ensure that developers have access to the information that they need. And I think we have pushed hard in many instances for mapping and in particular interactive mapping that would allow folks to understand that. And I don't think this is unrelated to the issue of cost of service regulation and tariff design. That is that, we again are in a place where we are doing things in a way that has worked historically, but we are also, bridging into a future where things are going to have to be done a little bit differently in order to achieve these policy goals that the state has. And so, when we think about doing traditional cost causation where, the last customer in is the customer bearing the brunt of that cost, it really is creating barriers to levels of investment in electrification, both in the building space and in the transportation space, that we need to, I think, take a step back and look at. I know the Energy Office, and this may, Commissioner Gilman, not be the appropriate moment, but the Energy Office more than once has observed that it may be worth revisiting this question of performance-based regulation and how to couple that with the traditional principles of cost of service regulation that ensure the kinds of consumer protections and rate guardrails that many of us who've done this for a long time understand and appreciate, but knowing that, we are also, again, in this policy-driven environment where we need to be helping focus the utilities on the outcomes that we would like them to achieve, and thinking about how to structure both the cost causation and the rate design, as well as the recovery that gets the utilities moving in the direction of working with customers and partnering with developers to begin to meet these policy goals, I think really speaks to the need to take that higher level look and to focus first on what those outcomes are. So with respect then, just for a moment to the question of tariffs, the Energy Office has observed in a number of proceedings that tariff design really can be key to meeting the state's energy goals or the state's climate goals, or to not making as much progress towards these goals. I mean, at the end of the day, the tariff design really does impact that policy. And so things like residential time of use, EV time of use at the secondary voltage level, potentially net metering and for the utilities, all are things that will help customers make the kinds of investments that state policy is suggesting we want them to make, or can impede that level of investment. And so it's good to couple this conversation of planning with recovery, with the way that customers are compensated for what they provide to the grid, and to make sure that the utilities are also earning what they need to cover the costs of building out a grid that provides that safe and reliable service while allowing customers to change the way that they are interacting and providing things onto that grid. So I really appreciate the opportunity to offer a few thoughts and observations at a much higher level, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Thank you, Commissioner Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Hayer. Appreciate it very much. Questions just at the moment for me, especially I want to make sure that we have time for everyone to participate here. It's been a very hearty discussion, and want to get to the rest of our participants. But thank you so much for taking the time to participate with us and offer your insights. So not seeing anyone else right now, I'm going to turn to category of utilities. I think we do have several utility representatives. Not sure if you all do intend to offer any comments here, but certainly invite those if you would. So please go ahead and signal by raising your virtual hand, and I can get to you in the order that you show up if you wish to offer live comments today. While I'm waiting to see if I have any hands there, I do. Okay, so we'll go to public service. Otherwise, any other utilities, please go ahead and raise your hands and we'll make sure we get to you after Public Service Company Colorado. And then I'd also offer, if we have any other participants on who have not had a chance to offer, maybe you didn't see where you fit in my broad categories, something like that, go ahead and raise your hand, anyone remaining who wishes to comment, and we will get to you in the order I see your hands in this session. So Mr. Berman from Public Service Company Colorado, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me, Commissioner Gilman? Just want to make sure the technology is working.
I can, and again, apologies about my video, but once a month your internet's always got to test you, and today is the day, so I'm limping along with only audio.
No problem at all. Steve Berman, STEVEBERMAN, Regional Vice President of Regulatory for Public Service. Just wanted to make some brief comments here. Nothing real specific, but wanted to acknowledge that we appreciate all the comments today. And we have been listening carefully with several of our subject matter experts in the room today to hear this dialogue. We also look forward to written comments that we can digest more and understand that a number of the commenters today suggested they'd be providing those. We, as you would expect, are providing our responses, diligently working on those to the questions that were asked in the original decision, and we'll also respond to any written comments that come into the record. Just wanted to also say that, you know, we do really value our relationship with our customers, and I was happy to hear today a number of people give some compliments to the team that works directly with them and the people here. We recognize there's challenges with specific projects. We recognize that every project is different, and we will continue to work with those customers on those projects for looking for solutions. At a high level, I think I would say I also appreciated Mr. Hayes' comments, and that there's a lot to unpack there, and that we, again, want to be actively participating in these proceedings to look forward to how we navigate the future. But we are in a clean energy transition, and we have seen that drive that and an urgent housing crisis that was discussed today as well in the state of Colorado and in the city of Denver, that's created an environment where we're seeing, you know, a significant uptick in those interconnection requests and local grid constraints that we haven't seen in the past. So we recognize that, and that there are challenges to come with that. We look forward to continuing to have that dialogue in this proceeding and in any other proceedings that are tangential to that, like the distribution system planning process that we'll be undergoing next year on the second go around there. We want to continue to think forward and adapt our processes as needed to provide service as best we can. However, we do recognize that there is an unprecedented need for distribution investment. And, you know, we look forward to discussing policies that encourage and ensure that that investment's made. I think Mr. Hayes' comments were very helpful there about how we can think about that and look to that in future proceedings. And also recognize that our current policies and tariffs seek to balance both individual customer costs and against the framework of what should the broader system cover for costs. And we'll need to continue to consider those items in future proceedings as well. So I think that's kind of all I wanted to say at a high level today. And again, thank you, and thank all the commenters, and just recognize for everyone on the call that we are listening, and we look forward to providing responsive comments.
Thanks, Mr. Burns. Appreciate that. So now I'm open to any other utility representatives on the line who wish to offer a comment. Go ahead and raise your hand. While I'm waiting for that, I'll also offer anyone else on the Zoom who wishes to offer any comments or experience insights. Please feel free to tick on your camera or raise your virtual hand, and I will get to you. We are winding up time here, so if you're waiting, don't don't wait any longer. Go ahead and raise your hand and offer us your comments at this time. Okay, I don't see anyone coming on, so let me, I was going to turn on my camera, but I don't want to risk it, so I'll just keep myself the box. So I really wanted to thank you all for your comments today. As many of you pointed out, there are many really important policy objectives at play, including greenhouse gas reductions, beneficial electrification, deployment of more EVs, distributed energy resource investments in the grid, and really wanted to applaud you all for the roles you're playing in that, as well as the important roles many of you are playing in housing, and particularly affordable housing within the state, and your dedication to your jobs and your missions, and really appreciate you all joining us today to share how this piece impacts you. This has been incredibly helpful insights to me, as well as many of our advisors and attorneys, I'm sure, as to how that's going on the ground, what that looks like, what that feels like, where things might be going well and where the pain points are. And certainly, you know, it's my goal to do what we can to address those, to ensure that we're as successful as possible in achieving all the policy goals we have set out, and of course, making things just better, easier across the board in any way we can. So your experiences are incredibly helpful to us. And I want to point out, at least to me, during my time on the commission, we have a lot of voices represented here today, really expert, insightful voices helping us to understand how things are going, how maybe they could be better. So perhaps some of you are not as familiar with our e-filing system as others. So I just wanted to offer, we do have each of your emails from the signups. So I look forward to and intend to utilize that as a service list of sorts to help provide you all any updates within this proceeding on a major kind of comment or questions or other goings on here, since you all have really helpful insight as we really get our arms around not just issues, but what are the proper ways to address these as we move forward. So hopefully, you know, I'm sure there's a way you'll have opt out if we're pestering you. My priority is really to ensure that you all can stay informed on this issue that I can tell you're very knowledgeable and passionate about. Just one more chance, raise your hand, tick on your camera, anything, if anyone is still out there who wishes to comment before I close this out. Mr. Burke, go right ahead. Mr. Burke, do you want to offer comment? I see your video on for just a minute.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Just want to make sure I didn't steal your opportunity from you. Okay, well, with that, I don't see anyone else here. Once again, please feel free to file any written comments if you have more examples, concrete information, facts you'd like to share with us. Please do file that. You can do it through e-filing if you're familiar. If you're not familiar, you can go to the PUC's website, which is puc.colorado.gov. Got it written here somewhere. You can file a comment there. There's a large kind of button on the main page there to file a comment. If you are able, you could reference proceeding number 23M-0464EG, so we can properly get that routed to make sure that I see it sooner than later. And like I said, very early on in this process, so I anticipate there will be more goings on, more opportunities for comment and things like that. So if you have your emails, and we hope to keep you all informed. And please do feel free to reach out with any comments, concerns to us through the avenue mentioned. So with that, I will close out this public comment hearing today. Thank you all again so much for joining us. Thank you, Harriet, for transcribing for us. and for the support from our advisors and legal counsel. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your day.